Awesome. All right, thank you guys for anybody here for tuning in. We got myself, Blake, and Dan across from me here, and I think we got a pretty interesting little video conversation here. Being that we just did a startup draft, one where it's a pretty standard league, 12 team, start 10, point 0.5 PPR or point 0.5 tight end premium, and $100 buy-in. So that's basically what happened. Is I started up. Dan joined maybe a sixth round. I just figured we asked Dan if he'd come in, try to keep us on track, and see how he was wanting to attack the startup draft. So I appreciate you for coming in there, Dan, and feel like we really killed this draft.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm happy with the way it went. I think we kind of went with a bit of an experimental strategy, so it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But I like where we're at so far with it.
Yeah. So with that, let's get started looking at the draft here.
All right.
And basically, what happened is we got the 10th pick of the draft, which I was actually pretty happy of because last year getting the 10th pick to me was not a good spot at all. I wanted to be at basically one every time or close to it. And being at 10 now, you have a lot of flexibility to take quarterbacks, trade back. There are a lot of players that people want around 10, or you can have a Jamar Chase or Jefferson fall to you. I felt that was a pretty good spot. And basically, the first move we did was Jalen Hurts fell to 6, and I basically just saw the opportunity. I think we basically traded from the 5th to the 7th, and maybe like a way later pick swap. That is minimal, and we jumped. The 10th pick was Jamar Chase. We were able to grab Jalen Hurts, so I felt like that was a good start to the draft. That's my first Hurts share.
Yeah, so you were originally picking from 10, and you moved up to 5. You said.
Yeah, exactly. Or 6.
To 6. Okay.
Because I couldn't believe he was on the board still at 6. I mean, I think that's not crazy now, but I mean, I saw Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow go over him. To me, I have a bunch of Joe Burrow. You cannot trade Joe Burrow for Hurts. Like, that is just not a trade that's in an actual league that I've ever been able to try and pull off. So
right.
I thought that was kind of a no-brainer myself there to try and get Hurts.
Yeah. So what did you have to give up to move up those 4 spots?
I think it was essentially I did a pick swap from 5th round to the 7th. It might have been a round and a half or even less than that.
Right.
And then maybe something much later. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was. I would say it's minimal for to get. Well, it's basically QB1 the last 2 or 3 seasons there. I figured.
Oh yeah, I mean that doesn't seem like too steep of a cost there to be moving up 4 spots in the first round.
Yeah, exactly. And the thinking behind it is I'm not really moving up 4 spots. I don't know. It's hard for me to say that you can draft Hurts later than 3 or 4 in the startup. So I felt like I was jumping up more spots than I truly was.
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought that was a good way to start the draft off. Coming back around, that was the other thing. I had to move back in the second round from the start of the second to that was the other swap. So it's pretty big. We moved from the 2-3 to the 209, so 6 spots. This whole second round, I feel pretty comfortable about. 203. There might have been. We'll see who that. It was Trevor Lawrence, which I've seen him go past the 209 anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So not really a loss there, in my opinion.
Yeah. So, and what did you get for moving back those 6 spots or so?
That was in the Hurts trade. That was that was part of it.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So I think it worked out because I don't own any Breece Hall in any other leagues. I figured, I think we were talking, just before, quarterbacks are a little bit overrated in startup drafts, just being that, if you can get sometimes like a Jefferson or a Breece Hall It's awesome obviously to have a Hurts, but it's like sometimes when you pair and kind of sell out your startup draft for two quarterbacks. Like if we said we could have took a Jordan Love here,
Mm.
who went 2 picks later. I think it's much easier to fill the void of a Jordan Love with how our draft went than it
Yeah.
is to even get a Brees Hall. Um, right? So
Yeah, because you can always kind of replace your QB2 with getting like a few guys late, backup guys that have a chance to start, and that's pretty much what we did
yeah,
later. We can
yeah,
save that
absolutely.
for later in the draft, but yeah, tougher to kind of replace those upper echelon, wide receiver, running back type. So I think it was good that you got one in the second round in Brees Hall.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And some a little bit of my thinking too is when you have a guy like Tyreek Hill, Brees Hall, whatever, it's kind of like you're just starting a quarterback, points per game wise, in the like running back or wide receiver position. At the end of the day, like a little sneak peek to who our QB2 is right now, Gardner Minshew. Like Gardner can outscore in any week or matchup. Let's say it's maybe it's Jordan Love or something, right? Like that's not crazy. He will do
Mm-hmm.
that. So I think it's an interesting just little topic there. But basically, we came back. We traded out of the third round. At some point, we got like a first, some other startup picks. I can't remember the exact trade. And then we come back all the way to the fourth round. I was hoping to get Drake London here because I didn't own any Drake London. I didn't know Kirk Cousins was going to go there. I had no idea. Like I genuinely, being a Vikings fan, thought he'd stay in Minnesota, which also is part of the Jordan Addison pick because there was a little bit of uncertainty about that.
Okay, you were
So
thinking Jefferson might get traded.
no, 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 no Jefferson being traded, but I'm like 90% sure Cousins would resign.
Oh, Cousins. Yeah.
Like
Okay. Sorry.
that everything was coming back. Obviously there was some news that he might test out free agency because this happened. This draft started a few days before,
Mm-hmm.
but like being with Addison, like having Jefferson on the other side of you, no concern at all to me with how the Vikings utilize Addison, and he had 10 touchdowns, and a lot of those came with Jefferson and or quarterback play for half the season. So I was pretty happy to select him there.
Yeah,
Basically,
I think Addison kind of had a underrated rookie season.
yeah,
People just kind of like it seems like because we've been kind of spoiled by like the Puka Nakuas of the world. It's like if you're not that, then it's just like oh re-roll, find
yeah,
someone who has a chance at like being a lead. And sometimes I think we chase after that upside a little too much. So, but yeah,
yeah,
Addison had a really good year and people forget that these receivers can take a leap in their second year and their third year. So
yeah.
for Addison to have the year he did, and the fact that he can build on that, I think that was a solid pick there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's sometimes it's not as exciting to draft a guy like Addison because even just picks before London would have been much more better, but we weren't able to trade up for him, not knowing kind of when he would come off the board as well because there was a guy like Pittman still available. That's kind of was my cue to trade for him when Pittman came off,
Mm-hmm.
and unfortunately London came off first. Because I thought London would be a perfect kind of fit for the start of this team. And then you get your Tank Dell. That's an interesting topic in its own with these rookie receivers. That there was just so many of them
Mm-hmm.
drafted at different spots of the NFL draft last year. You have Tank Dell, like Addison, Rasheed Rice, just clustered together. Zay Flowers, JSN, right? And you got just so many receivers that it's kind of hard to rank them all. Like I think if you asked any person, they would have a different kind of order for all those receivers. But
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
yeah, then we
after Puka Nakua, you can kind of like make
yeah
an argument for a bunch of different guys after that for those rookies this past season.
yeah no exactly. And another interesting thing here about the startup draft is like speaking of just the Tank Dell, there is that he goes like an entire round after Nico Collins,
Mm-hmm.
just like maybe an injury discount. Like those guys are it's kind of hard to place I don't know a value between those guys. Just what
Yeah,
we've seen.
it seems silly how just because I mean Tank Dell was crushing it the first half of the season, and then he gets injured, misses about like the second half of the season, and then everyone kind of forgets about him, and then like Nico
Yeah.
Collins goes up higher in the ranking. But like if Dell had stayed healthy, I think Dell would probably be ranked ahead. So
Yeah,
um,
exactly.
yeah, so I mean, I understand. Like, I mean, some of the concern about Tank Dell is that like he's small, he might be more injury prone. So if that's your argument,
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense. But I think it might be a little recency bias as well.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's exactly with Tank Dell. There's definitely kind of like a buying window with guys that get hurt, and just going into just other league settings
Hmm.
was definitely like I think Richardson was just a massive buy. I think I have him in two or three leagues where I didn't draft him in any,
Oh
and
yeah,
just the price at which you can get him, like just a guy that's hurt is just
yeah.
you know
Oh
it's
yeah,
a
I think
good
Richardson's
way
a
to take
great buy
advantage
right
of.
now because he was crushing it those first few games, and then he gets
Yeah,
hurt, and you know, I think everyone's worried. A lot of people are worried about him because maybe there isn't enough of a sample size of him playing in the NFL and producing where people like feel good about it,
yeah.
and so because he only played in a few games and got hurt, it begs the question like, oh, is he injury prone, whatever. But I think he's a great buy.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's actually who I was targeting in the first round. Had Hurts not fell,
Yeah.
I was just gonna sit there and just basically take Richardson. He actually went off at like the pick after Hurts, I think,
Okay.
or maybe two picks after.
Yeah.
So he wouldn't have been there, but that is how I was planning on attacking it. Was just starting off with Richardson. So
Yeah.
then I invite Dan into the sixth round around there.
Hmm.
We actually traded to the fifth. We acquired one of our league mates first, and I can't remember the pick compensation. We gave him the fifth, and some picks were swapped later or something.
Yeah.
And
But
then we get you in here.
yeah, but at this point now you've acquired two
Yeah,
additional firsts in 2025, right?
yeah, two additional firsts, and there might have been a moment where I believe I'd already gotten a second. I can't remember
Okay.
what that trade was.
Yeah,
So,
but either way,
um,
you had accumulated some nice future draft capital in 2025, as well as gotten Jalen Hurts, Brees Hall, and Jordan Addison.
yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah,
what we were sitting on
yeah,
through six rounds.
and then you
Looking to make our
decided
next
to
selection.
bring in my expertise.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So yeah. Then this is where it kind of got interesting, right? Is we got two people trying to draft. Where there's so many directions basically this team can go. Because we have the future draft capital. We have the Brees Hall and Hurts who could be QB1 or RB1 next season,
Right.
and then there's kind of this piece of Addison where it's like, okay,
Hmm.
where are we going to bring this team out? How's this going to work out? How's the draft going to unfold, right?
Right.
And
Because I'm guessing that part of the reason you probably brought me in is because you were probably trying to figure out first of all like what direction to go in from here because you were pretty flexible with where you were at that point. You had future draft capital, and you had a couple of studs. You had a nice young receiver in Addison, um, and even Hurts and Brees Hall are on the younger side as well. So you really had the flexibility to go either direction. So yeah, like was that question on your mind in terms of like which direction to go from that point?
yeah, because normally what happens in all my startup drafts, and it's been very successful, and in my opinion, it's been a really good year of donating $100 for my
Hmm.
startups, doing the productive struggle, and being I think in like there's like that little keep trade cut power rankings.
Hmm.
I think like the lowest I'm in there in any league is like 4, and I think it's in that orphan league,
Okay.
like blood, sweat, and beers,
Yeah.
where I'm actually really happy with my team there. But that's like kind of like a little fun thing to look at, and it's just like seeing that all my startup drafts last year too. I basically came out at the top three, top
Hmm.
whatever, top two, top three, and I'm sitting either at one or two in a lot of them right now.
Right.
Whether my team is actually going to be the best competing or not, it's just built all off stud, quarterback, receiver, tight end, and kind of the running backs. You just got to fill in with some future picks or whatever. But
Right.
so that's kind of what the question was: is like how do I kind of get a start here? How can I build the best team, but also potentially like give myself a chance to compete? Because there's obviously I was just tanking for the 101
Hmm.
in all those leagues, or the 102, whatever. And so let's just see what Dan thinks here, and like just kind of get him there in here to guide. what we think the best value, best way to bring this team would be. And so I genuinely I didn't know what we were gonna do. I thought it might be interesting to compete, and as crazy it is when people are looking at our team, there is no chance for us to compete at right now. But when you scroll down to the draft picks, which is going to start to make sense when people are looking at this roster, they're kind of wondering where our draft capital is, and it's in obviously the loaded draft class this year and 3 first, 3 seconds in 2025. So, you know, we this is basically going into the 606. This was the first pick with you. Our kind of dilemma here was Debo Samuel or the 110 because the 109 just got sniped off the board. I was just like seeing like, oh man, Debo, if we are going to compete, getting a guy like Debo can kind of anchor down this receiver room. You talked me out of it. I'm pretty happy with that because we saw Debo fall basically a round later, and I think we actually passed up on him again.
Yeah, so we ended up taking the 110 over Debo, and then with our next
Yep.
pick, it was the 112 or Debo who was still there, and we ended up going with the 112. And then, if I'm not mistaken, we also had a third chance to get him, and
Yeah.
we ended up going with the 201. So we kept pressing our
Yeah.
luck. I mean, we figured at some point he's going to
Yeah.
get
At that
drafted.
point,
So at some point we
yeah.
were okay with not getting Debo, but I think we just
Yeah.
saw too much value in the rookie picks, and just getting that flexibility of the draft picks just seemed to
Yeah.
fit our build better and what we wanted to do.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and it was a big thing too that we were talking about is just owning this entire spot in the rookie draft. Where
Mm-hmm.
and within 4 picks we have 3 of them, and a pretty good. We expect some good players even on the board, especially wide receivers around that area, and it just gives us a lot of room to either trade out, trade up, stick and pick, whatever we want to do that we feel is the best. So
Yeah.
I don't mind that. It would be interesting to see this team had we selected Debo after the 201 because I wonder how we would have attacked it. We could have attacked it the exact same way had Debo instead of the 201.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe then even with just slotting a Debo in there, our team looks a lot more competitive. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing we kept talking about was flexibility, that we just wanted to
Yeah,
stay flexible for as long as possible. And then by the end of the draft, we could sort of assess things and figure out like, okay, what do we want to do with this team? We could kind of keep it in rebuild mode, / productive struggle, or,
yeah,
depending on what we have and what value fell to us, is this something we could turn into a contender either, and would that process is that process something we could start like right after the rookie draft, or is that something a
yeah.
plan we would kind of put into place during the rookie draft? Perhaps trading out of some of those picks, getting some veterans, that type of thing. But yeah, I think the biggest thing we want to do is just stay flexible for as long as possible because that just gives us the most options for what we want to do moving forward. So we felt like that was the best way to go.
Yeah, exactly, and I think it is. Yeah, especially when we get to draft time, I think it's going to be a lot easier to move a 201 over a 28-year-old Debo Samuel if
Yeah.
that's going to be the scenario.
Yeah, I mean, the
So yeah, I
question I
think
asked is that, like, I mean, especially with like the earlier picks, like when we picked like the 110 and the 112
yeah,
for the rookie draft, the question I was asking is when we're on the clock at the 110, would we be able to trade out of that pick for Debo Samuel plus something else, And if that's the case,
yeah,
then there's really no point in taking Debo Samuel here because we could potentially get more trading out of it. Now, when we trade out of a rookie pick, it might not be specifically Debo Samuel, but it might be a similar asset. Maybe it's Mike
yeah,
Evans
yeah,
plus
exactly.
something, plus like a later pick in the
Yeah,
draft or
exactly.
something like that. I think the example I
Yeah,
gave was like maybe someone offers us Mike Evans in a mid-second for the 110 or something like that. I mean, you just don't know. Um,
yeah,
there could be some trade offers that you wouldn't think would be realistic and would never happen, but I've seen it before. I'm sure you have as well. People get rookie fever and they're just
yeah,
dying to trade up and get their guy. So I think
yeah.
that's a
No,
really
exactly.
powerful position to be in the rookie draft is having a lot of those picks and especially the early ones.
Yeah, especially coming off this wide receiver class last year, people are probably, oh man, this is the next Rasheed Rice here. Oh, there's Malachi Corley or like whatever
Yeah.
they're thinking, right? So it's gonna be good.
Well, yeah,
having
that's
all
the
the
other thing is
receivers
that
on the
because of
board.
like the Puka Nakuas, the Tank Dells,
Yeah,
even like Jaden Reed,
exactly.
there were so many wide receivers that were taken in like the second, third, even like fourth round of rookie
Yeah,
drafts last year that paid off.
every round.
Yeah, that
Yep.
like there's going to be a huge impact of that where like people are going into this rookie draft are going to be thinking in the back of their minds, at least a lot of them, that like, hey, like I could potentially find someone like that in this draft. And it's not that crazy of a thought because of how deep of a wide receiver class this is objectively. And you kind of combine those two things, and I really feel like rookie picks have a lot of value this year, and especially once they're on the clock.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think it's gonna be really fun, especially for us to sort through what we're gonna end up doing.
Yeah,
Come the rookie draft, and especially just seeing where these receivers land,
yeah,
and how we kind of move guys up and down our rookie board there.
yeah.
But and then now another interesting topic as we basically what happened. We take the 201, we come back, we get the 203 and 204. What starts to get interesting to me at this point is you get when you're in a startup draft. Maybe when you're in your league that's already existed, you kind of already have like a value on guys. You're like, oh yeah, George Kittle, he's worth the 111 or something, right? Like in a tight end premium, whatever you might think, right? Oh, I get a first for him. But we're actively continually passing up on people, right? That were like, yeah, you know what? I guess I'd rather have the 204 or something over him, right? Like just
Right,
because everyone could use a 204, not everyone wants George Kittle, right? People have tight ends already.
right.
He's he's old, and not that we weren't considering George Kittle, but just an
Yeah.
example. I see him right beside our pick there.
Well, yeah. I mean,
At the
same for
204.
the Debo Samuels and Mike Evans, like all those kind of like older, productive veterans. Like they're great to have, but this time of year, like it seems like no one really wants the old guys. Everyone's kind of thinking about the long
Yeah,
term for their dynasty teams in the off season. And so, if you go to try to trade like a George Kittle, how many other managers in the league are going to be actively interested in making a trade with you? A bunch of them will already be
yeah,
set at tight end. And then of the ones that maybe don't have a great tight end, some of them are going to be rebuilding. And so they don't want to trade for a
exactly, yeah,
George Kittle who's like 30 or whatever. And so that's going to leave you with what, maybe one or two managers that it would make sense for them to trade for George Kittle. And then of those one or two managers, are those both like active members, or are those like, are those managers that are just like checked out in the off season and,
yeah,
never check their inbox for trade offers? You know what I mean? So like, you might not even be able
yeah,
to move a George Kittle at a reasonable price, even if you wanted to in this time of year. So it's just so much easier to have that draft pick. I mean,
yeah,
there's
exactly,
there's no one in your league that doesn't want to acquire the 110. Everyone
yeah,
wants it. So it's
yeah,
just so
exactly.
much. There's just so much more demand for that, and it's just so much easier to move.
No, yeah, well said. Like that's what my most kind of interesting thing is seeing how you kind of view players, how everything changes when you're in that startup draft, especially with your team context. But just it's so much easier to grab like a rookie pick or a really younger asset than kind of a crusty guy.
Yeah, because
Um,
it's not just about like comparing the player that you would draft with that pick. You know what I mean? So like,
yeah, yeah, exactly.
if you say at that pick, that you would draft Lad McConkey or whomever,
Yeah,
so it's not about saying, well, who would I rather have, Lad McConkey or Debo Samuel? Because, A, you might not even make the pick, and
yeah,
B, you know, again, like we talked about, the difference between trying to move the player like Debo Samuel versus like the pick, which is flexible and liquid and that kind of thing.
yeah,
So the pick is different before it's actually made and turns into a player.
yeah, exactly. It's that's probably the most interesting thing in the dynasty
Yeah.
kind of area here is seeing how that all plays out. But what ended up happening here is we were now loaded up with that whole part of the draft, basically from the 110 to the 204. We own most of those picks. We come back around to the 10th round, and we have Michael Mayer sitting on the board. We're kind of looking at all the guys going around. It's Cole Kmet goes right before we kind of had him on the board before they signed like Everett and stuff and,
Yeah.
and whatever else. And Keenan
Keenan
Allen.
Allen.
Yeah, that was a big
Yep.
one, and we have like Alvin Kamara coming off, so I think Michael Mayer, he was the only tight end that didn't really like flash. Given he's pretty undervalued now because of that, in my opinion. So we figured he would take a shot on him. We end up trading him in the 17th round, and I think we got a good haul back for him. I guess we can just say that now. We got Michael Mayer. He's a guy that I have no idea what any like. You could have probably asked 10 people, and you'll get 10 different responses of what Michael Mayer is worth. I don't
Yep.
think you can put an actual value. Just some random 20-25 second
Hmm.
would be enough to get him from a lot of people.
Yeah.
And we got that. We got a 25 second. We got a 17th round startup pick, and we got Cade Otton, who trades like these are the ones I like to make personally because you can kind of just tell yourself this story. You can go, okay, well, Cade Otton, I think you pointed out he had a better rookie season than Michael Mayer.
Yep.
He might not be better than Michael Mayer, but
Right.
he had a better rookie season. He was heating up, and now we have like a bet where it's like, okay, if can Cade Otton either stay close or like surpass Mayer in like dynasty value.
Hmm.
Plus we got the second on top. Plus we got the 17th round startup pick that we get a shot in a quarterback. So
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember. With that 17th round startup pick, I can't remember if we used that on Sam Darnold, or
yeah, that was Darnold.
That was Darnold. Okay, so yeah, and that was coming off the news, of course, that Kirk Cousins had signed with Atlanta, and then the Vikings signed Sam Darnold, and so we thought there was at least an opportunity for Darnold to potentially start for the Vikings. Of course, they might draft a rookie. But in the 17th round, we thought that was worth taking a chance on. So, I mean, basically our thought process was, I mean, it was kind of a classic tear down trade, tearing down from Michael Mayer to Cade Otton, a tight end who, was more productive in his rookie season and then also took kind of a nice step forward in his second season and kind of started getting hot toward the end of the season. So we didn't feel like that was too big of a tear down. And then on top of it, we get a 25-second, which is really nice, accumulate more of that future draft capital that we wanted to, get and just keep, adding to our war chest of future draft picks. And then on top of that, even getting a later startup pick and grabbing, a quarterback to kind of help put together a QB2 for this roster, since we didn't really have anything after Jalen Hurts at that point. And then just to be clear, so yeah, basically, I mean, once I came in and started, co-managing this startup with you, I think it was, we pretty much just hit the rookie picks. I think it was 5 in a row. So it was a 110, 112, 201, 203, 204. So yeah, we just went boom, 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 5 rookie picks in a row. Because it just seemed like that's where the value was. I mean, it seemed like most of the other managers were going for the players, and it just seemed like there was a lot of value with those rookie picks in the late first, early second of the 24 rookie draft. So yeah, we just went 5 in a row there, until we got to the pick where we took Michael Mayer, who we ended up trading.
Yeah, I think the one thing looking back at this draft that kind of didn't go our way with our plan is that, normally in a startup, you do get guys like just reaching up, not even maybe reaching up the board, but kind of guys taking guys even just at value at the running back position. Mm-hmm. It just didn't feel like that was happening this draft at all.
Yeah.
I think Kyron, all those guys came off at the right time, and then I'm kind of expecting, our Isaiah Pacheco's to like get kind of pushed up the board, right, with guys trying to fill up their lineup. Rashad White. Maybe that's a good spot for Rashad White, but I don't know. I feel like Pacheco in the 8th round is a smart move to let him fall there, but I just expected guys like that to get pushed up a little bit more was all, and kind of give us a little more value.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like every round we were picking, when we clicked on the running backs tab, there were just like a dozen guys, a dozen running backs that was like, oh yeah, like, we would love to own any of these guys. But yet, like, there were so many that, like, there never seemed to be any urgency or scarcity to, like, grab one of them. So it's just like...
Yeah, we already had Breece Hall, too. So
yeah, exactly. So, yeah, we could just kind of go hero RB. And, basically, like, it's like, well, if everyone else is going to let these running backs fall, and there's still so many of them, let's just push
Yeah,
it
I don't
another
really care
round,
which one I
another
get,
round.
honestly. Yeah, exactly. It was like I think until basically I'm looking until our Zach Moss selection. That's basically when it started to really dry up at the running back position. And we actually got I think we got the big tier break there with Zach Moss with his news to the Bengals there.
Yeah.
Um,
So was that the next pick after Michael Mayer?
no, that's a little bit more down the board. Basically, we got a little off track there.
Yeah.
We kind of started getting shuffled around the picks here, the board here in picks. We had Condre Miller sitting, kind of on our like we were looking, I think, at the receiver landscape. It was really dry. We had all these rookie picks. The running back was starting to heat up. We started like feeling like there was some values. Condre Miller in the mid 12th. Alvin Kamara could be post June first, little cap release. Whether he will be or not, I don't know what the odds are of that. But he's obviously climbing up there in age. We saw one game out of Condre Miller. He's extremely young, and I think with just how the rookie picks were, is basically this was starting to get like in the third round. It might have even been like the 212 or 301. So I feel like Condre Miller was a pretty good bet there, going beside guys like you know Dalton Schultz, Quentin Johnson coming off the board pretty early there.
Yeah, I mean, I feel
So
like both of us are Kendre Miller truthers to a degree. We both
definitely,
liked his college tape and just his general explosiveness, and
yeah,
we just think there could be opportunity for him in his second season. We're thinking there's a chance that Alvin Kamara is out of there,
yeah.
and I mean they drafted Miller pretty high, if I remember. So
Yeah, the other big thing I had about that high capital is that he didn't even. I don't think he tested at any combine or pro day as well, which is like a pretty big like red flag for teams. And he still went in the third round.
yeah.
He was the youngest running back in the class, so it was just a lot of things that kind of back up the Saints' choice there.
Yeah, so I think it's just like a bet on the talent and the fact that
Yeah,
the Saints are going to use him at some point and could be this year.
yeah, exactly, and flashed at the end, so it was pretty exciting to see that with my like 80%. I don't know what I have a bunch of Condre Miller, so him and Zamir White are my most owned running backs.
Yeah,
And actually Zamir White's looking pretty good. I don't know
yeah,
what to do with
but
him.
I think Miller was just basically a value pick for us. So it wasn't
Yeah,
that we like needed a running back or anything like that.
no, no,
He was just like our favorite player on the board. And I think by
yep,
that point, some of the other managers were finally starting to take the rookie picks, and so the value there
yeah,
wasn't as good. And so we just kind of like let's just take the best player on the board.
yeah. So this is where it gets interesting, and this is where I received a couple. I think I got like 2 messages when we took James Conner, which is kind of funny because I don't know, I didn't never really message people,
Mm-hmm.
but I guess people were paying attention to our draft strategy. We're taking all the picks, all the young players,
Mm-hmm.
and then we just take James Conner, right? So people are just looking when they're looking at our team right now. They're going like, "What the hell am I looking at?" There's, we got Kendrick Bourne sitting beside Jordan Addison. We got all those rookie picks, but we take James Conner because basically we felt again. Here's another thing: the running backs were we felt starting to really outvalue the receivers that were on the board. You really like James Conner. I actually really like James Conner as well. And funny enough, he had like identical seasons from like this year to last year.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember playing him in a lot of like redraft,
Mm-hmm.
playoffs, and I had this crazy game where I lost it by 1 point, and James Conner was part of it
Yeah.
on Christmas Day or something. And anyways, he was just a menace to play against in
Oh yeah.
fantasy.
I swear it seems
Both
it's
years.
oh yeah, it seems like 3 years in a row now, ever since like
Yeah.
Connor's been on the Cardinals. He's just
Yep.
been like he's just gone like gangbuster at the end of the season each year
Yeah.
and just kind of
He just
becomes
needs
like
to get
this
hurt.
he just kind of
He
becomes
just
like
needs
this
to go into IR once.
yeah, I mean, you'll usually get like hurt for a few games, but then he'll
Yeah.
come back and then like he'll be like better than ever, and he's just like this like league winner down the stretch that you want to have in your fantasy playoffs. I feel like he's like a real common player to see on championship rosters. So he just seems to do it
Yeah.
every year, and so I know he's getting up there in age, but I gotta think he's got at least one more good year left in him. So he'll either help us compete, or we can flip him in season and probably get at least like a future second for him or something like that. So he just seemed
Yeah,
like
exactly.
too good of a value to pass up.
No, exactly. I'm very confident that we could get. We never know, but that we get a second for him in season. And like looking at guys around him now, it's like are you ever going to get a season out, like even one season out of Michael Wilson or Jake or whatever, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I like that pick, the value, and then and just again keeping us giving us these older players now actually really gets us flexible because we can really attack, um, different like avenues here, and then
Well, yeah, because
basically
if we decide to pivot into a contender, we're already going to have some of those pieces in place. So I
yeah
really, I don't think it hurt our flexibility too much at this point in the draft. I mean, it was
no,
pretty late by this point. I can't remember exactly what round it was, but
that was round 13, yeah.
round 13. So I mean, you're in like the middle rounds of the startup draft, and I mean, I think it was pretty crazy that you can get a running back like James Conner like
Yeah,
halfway through the startup practically. And so it's
yeah,
just like,
exactly.
how do you not just take the value of that? And like I said, he either helps us contend or he probably wouldn't be too hard to flip in season if he's producing again. So, and I feel pretty confident he's got one more year in him at least.
Yeah, exactly. And we're looking at just like a round a little bit later, like Dontavian Wicks is coming off the board and stuff. So it's like it's yeah, it's really easy to just take the player there, and
Right,
I think
because I
I
mean,
like
when you're choosing between like a productive running back or those classic kind of
yeah
borderline roster clogger receivers. I mean, nothing against
yeah
Dontavian
no one
Wicks. Like
wants
had a
you
nice
know
rookie season, and was another one of those kind of surprising rookies. But at the
yeah
same time, is he a starting wide receiver on the Packers? Like technically not. So
no exactly right.
yeah,
So it's like it's really easy to make these selections. I feel like, and just taking that way, I think that's a good way to attack the source of the running back position there, and people that's a position people are just dropping like flies in season. I'm very confident we can flip them.
yeah.
Basically, we come back around to the 14-10, and now we're like, okay, all the running backs kind of just came off the board. Like we don't like we kind of like maybe Khalil Herbert, but then we were like, no,
Mm-hmm.
we were maybe like way later. He ended up coming off after we picked Wandale Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
Um, basically, looking at the receivers, it's not like an like amazing pick. I like Wandale Robinson. I don't know about you,
Oh
but
yeah, oh yeah. I've been a fan of him since he came out. I
yeah,
definitely drafted him on at least one dynasty team.
yeah,
And then he tore his ACL, and then he was kind of a little slow coming back from that. But sounds like he's a guy that we both liked.
yeah,
And he was in a bad situation last year, coming off the torn ACL. No Daniel Jones on the Giants, just kind of a mess of an offense. So, but he started to kind of show some flashes and come on, especially toward the end of the season. So now heading into his third year, being a full year removed from that ACL injury, and hopefully you have a healthy Daniel Jones or some kind of better quarterback play than they had last season. I think he has
yeah.
a chance to progress. So just a guy that we like the talent, and I think we're kind of buying him low.
Yeah, exactly. Like kind of like something I'll just add there quickly is that what a guy we kind of were thinking is like, okay, Demario Douglas, he went off the board before. He's kind of an interesting guy,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm thinking in my head, why would we take Demario Douglas ahead of Wandale Robinson?
Yeah.
Right, like they're the exact same build, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wandale has produced more. Like through his time, he's a little more experienced, so we shouldn't have to hopefully wait more. They're in terrible situations. They don't have quarterbacks, and Wandale Robinson was a second round pick. So
Yeah.
in the NFL, right? So it's like I don't know why we wouldn't just take him. So that made it like a really easy pick. And then looking at his like the game he tore his ACL, I think he had like over 100 yards. He was
Yeah.
popping off. Like I just remember Daniel Jones that season was just targeting basically the piss out of him. It
Mm-hmm.
was like he was just drawing targets at an extremely high rate, which is a really good sign. And then obviously coming off the ACL, we don't expect much from him, and you kind of see how he started to heat up at the end of the season. So I thought
Yeah.
that's a kind of a good little like player take
Yeah.
pick by us there.
Oh yeah, I feel like he
good,
was a sneaky pick. I mean, some people might look at him
yeah,
and think, oh, he's just a roster clogger. But I think you got to look a little deeper than that with Wandale Robinson and think about the context around his situation with the Giants and the quarterback there or lack thereof. And but
exactly.
yeah, second round pick, and he was ultra productive in college too. I mean, he
Yep.
has some great tape, but also if you look up his college stats, he had like a ridiculous like target share in college. I think like
Yeah.
one season, maybe like junior season or something like that. I swear he had like a 40% target share on his team or something ridiculous, like
Yeah.
that. So, I mean, that's something that I like to see is a receiver that can get open and command targets. So, Wandale Robinson can
Yeah.
definitely do that. So, give him a halfway decent offense and quarterback, and give him full bill of health and everything like that. I think he's going to do some good things and
Yeah.
surprise some people.
No, exactly. I'm happy with the pick, and another just with any player, if they're in a terrible situation, it's like if we pick him, really like his situation, it can't get worse. It really can't. Like
Yeah.
he's not gonna have Tommy DeVito throwing him balls, right? So
Right.
it's
Right.
like,
Yeah.
I'm fine. I'm fine with anything like buying on players that are in that situation, and then we come back around the turn, we take what it would have been the 304.
304 in
Into
the
53.
rookie draft. Yeah.
Yeah, we're taking him around guys like Jalen Hyatt. Like I'm happy with that selection. We
Yeah.
actually we had 3 picks this round. Not too much to say about that. We take 305 a few picks later. Now we're starting to get guys like Ty Chandler off the board, who appears to be alive right now. I have a ton of Ty Chandler though, so it wasn't like
Yeah.
too. I know you mentioned his name. I wasn't too like heavily invested
Mm-hmm.
or like in drafting him. We actually, it looks like we drafted K-Dot and we did not. We traded from, which we touched on earlier.
Right.
Board comes back to us in round 16. And now it's like getting really gross, with our players. You really got to get your player takes going now.
Yeah.
And, like a guy I really wanted as well was Khalil Shakir. He came off the board. I figured he'd come off the board maybe a couple rounds later, but then, looking at who came off, it makes sense he went now. We luckily get Zach Moss, signs with the Bengals maybe a day later, after, because that was the interesting part for anyone watching. This now, like, free agency had combined with the draft, so come this next round, we get Zach Moss. We're like, okay, he could be a sneaky little pick here. Like, there's no one else really with any upside, kind of in this tier. We come back into round 17, and this is like, I think it's the first day of like free agency, right?
Yeah, exactly. And like moves were happening left and right. I mean, like every time I hit like refresh on my phone, there was like a new big signing. I mean, it was just wild. So. And yeah, this was like, during the day on whatever day that was. I think it was Monday. And we realized there was kind of an advantage to just like being on the clock that day during business hours while all these like moves were going down, because like you could just kind of sit on your pick and just kind of see like what news broke while you were on the clock, just kind of waiting, filibustering. And, then there could be an advantage in like, oh, Zach Moss signed with the Bengals and they're releasing Joe Mixon. Yeah, don't mind if I do. So that's pretty much what was going on there. So I think the news had just broke and we saw that as an opportunity to grab Zach Moss. The timing lined up pretty well.
We actually picked him before. Sorry, we picked him actually before the news broke.
Oh, did we? I think you're right. That's right.
I think the next morning. Or maybe a few hours later.
Yeah.
Because he didn't sign right away. So all this free agency was happening. We take Moss. We're like, hey, he can land with a spot.
Yeah.
And then we come back in around 17, and we're like, I think we pick? No. We picked Noah Fant. He hadn't signed yet. We were kind of hoping he goes to a different team. He stays in Seattle. It is what it is. He's kind of just an upside guy in round 17. Whatever, maybe he's David Njoku. That's all we can pray for. But now it starts getting interesting because there's a lot of players. Like it's so funny how startup drafts work. You're like in round 13, you're looking at all these disgusting players, but then you're in round 17, you're still looking at these disgusting guys, but there's like, you think you have some gems, some guys that you think is going to be a Nico Collins or whatever, right? And we're sitting on the pick 1708, and the Gardner Minshew news, I think he had like just broken.
Yeah.
We survived that pick, the couple picks ahead of him. Now we are sitting on the clock for like a couple hours, and we're trying to figure out, because what happened was we picked Sam Darnold before he signed with the Vikings, because the person that broke, I don't know, they broke some kind of news.
Right.
Or no. It was an actual NFL insider, like something DM Rossini. It's that girl. She seemed pretty credible. Sam Darnold was going to go to the Vikings, but we weren't 100% sure. So we're
Right.
like, do we take Minshew? Do we take Darnold?
Right.
Like, we don't know anything about the contracts. And then I'm like, well, if we take Darnold, we're not going to get Minshew. But if we take Minshew, there's still a chance we can get Darnold, like, or move up. Like, Minshew was the guy you had to take at that point, just based off the information we had. But it was kind of a hard decision. We end up milking the clock. We do the Cade Otton trade, actually. We get within 3 picks. I felt that was more than safe enough to get, Sam Darnold.
Yeah, so basically we were on the clock and we were debating between the two quarterbacks, and while we were just kind of like milking the clock there, we were able to pull off that Michael Mayer trade where we got Cade Otton, the future second, and then we got an additional pick a few picks later in that round. And so then at that point, we were on the clock still, and we also had another pick a few picks later. So we had 2 picks, within a few picks of each other. And so then at that point, we then, felt confident that there was a decent chance we could get both of those quarterbacks, which we wanted to get to kind of fill out our quarterback depth after Jalen Hurts. So then it was just a matter of, okay, well, who do we take first? Do we take Minshew or do we take Darnold? And we went with Minshew because at that point, it had been official that he had signed with the Colts, right? That happened while we were on the clock. So, so if I'm not mistaken, we basically that was a situation where we just like stayed on the clock until like we had like as much information as possible. I think Minshew had just signed, and so the timing of that was serendipitous. And then we were like, okay, maybe we should just milk this clock down and see what other news breaks. And
exactly.
And then we saw the report that Darnold was probably going to the Vikings. So we're like, okay, let's take Minshew because that's definite. And then now that we got this trade for another pick a few picks later, we'll kind of target Darnold there. And thankfully he fell there. He was still available, and we pulled the trigger, and it worked out because not long after that, Darnold signed with the Vikings. So we got both of our QBs there.
Yeah, exactly. So now we're sitting, like at this very moment, we're sitting on three starting quarterbacks in the roster. It took till the 17th round. That has a good, I like that 17th round. That was a pretty exciting one for being so late in the draft. And, we lose our 18th round pick somehow. Maybe, I don't know, I think we maybe swapped it in that Otton trade, but I can't remember.
Yeah.
And then we're now sitting, again, there's news breaking. Gus Edwards had signed, I want to say, hours before our pick at 1903. He was kind of a guy, I remember you mentioned, Gus Edwards. I didn't really have him like on my board, but I'm like, yeah, that's a pretty good, landing spot. There's no competition right now, so we might as well just go ahead, throw a dart on him, hope he survives the draft, and
he had just signed with the Chargers, and of course, new regime there with Jim Harbaugh. And so, we know one thing that Harbaugh likes to do is run the football. And, what are the first moves that Harbaugh makes? He brings in 2 tight ends that are probably, more known for their blocking, and Will Dissly and Hayden Hurst. And then he brings in Gus Edwards, just a no-nonsense, hammer of a running back. So, a guy that was, efficient in Baltimore. So I think it's safe to say, and that they're going to want to run the football. And then on top of that, I think, after the fact, they end up trading away Keenan Allen and Gerald Everett, and they cut Mike Williams, I believe. So it definitely seems like they're going to want to run the football a bit. So, they might, they might draft a running back. Maybe he has his eye on, Blake Corum from Michigan there. But in any case, I feel like Gus Edwards is going to be part of that rotation and have a chance to score some touchdowns, if nothing else. So we thought that it was good value there.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not a big Blake Corum guy at the moment, but if he falls with the Chargers, we have more than enough picks to figure out how to get him on the team.
Yeah.
There's a lot of this is where I like, if someone's watching this, they're looking at a roster, they're like, man, your roster, like, I think just looking at it, I think it looks terrible to someone that might just they're going, what the hell did you do in that startup? Like,
Right,
you
right.
have a bunch of old guys, and then you have like a few young studs, and then you just have a million draft picks. That's the important part.
Yeah.
But with these picks, I think from basically like whatever round when we picked Connor on to the end of the startup draft, that was when the true flexibility was happening because
Hmm.
now we actually have guys like Zach Moss, Gus Edwards that we like. These guys can put up good fantasy seasons. Gardner Minshew,
Yep.
and we can just kind of work our way, trade our way around to actually competing if we want to. If the chances there, that's the biggest kind of like little lesson here is that like it might not look pretty,
Yep.
but we definitely have like kind of the tools to in depth to even to fill out our roster
Yeah.
and our lineup, and then
I mean,
you know
basically, once like all like the good, young, appealing, players were gone, and like the early rookie picks, you basically had a choice between like, I mean, we were looking at what like the rookie picks were like, late third round and getting into fourth round kind of thing, and it's like at
yeah
that point, just give me some of these,
yeah
productive veterans that some of them go into good situations, like Gus Edwards to the Chargers and, Zach Moss to the Bengals and some of these quarterbacks going to new places. And so let's
yeah
just find some guys, even if they're a little older, that are going to produce, and they'll either help us win some games, or we flip them and get some future draft picks for them. So it just seemed like it was the
yeah
best value there.
exactly. Yeah, I think we got a lot of players we were just big fans of coming back around to the 20th. Or
Yeah.
big fans of their situation, but
Yeah.
I'm not a big Gus Edwards guy.
Right,
But
right.
we come back
But
around
hey, if he puts the
to
ball in
the
the end
you
zone,
know,
he's going to be useful to our team.
yeah. No, exactly. That's all that matters. So coming back around to we're in round 20. Like these are, we're probably in like the fourth round of like rookie picks now,
Yeah.
right? Like they're basically getting there.
Yeah.
It's not. We're just throwing darts. Like
Wait.
we now see Drew Lock. You were not a big Daniel Jones guy. I think that's kind of it's a whole topic. I've seen a report like it looked real. It's Twitter, so you just don't know. Like I don't really believe it, but because I only saw it one place, but it said Daniel Jones is like a post June 1st designation cut. We would have seen that somewhere else had
Mhm.
like that would have been floating around everywhere. I feel like that
Yeah.
was if that was any truth to that, but and I don't know why. Yeah, why they wouldn't just keep him with probably what the cap hit is. I don't know. I'm not the salary manager there for the Giants.
Right. But you know what was also
Lock,
interesting is also, I don't know, did you see that report where, I think I showed it to you, where it was talking about how Drew Lock went to the Giants, instead of re-signing with the Seahawks, because supposedly he was promised an opportunity to compete for the starting quarterback spot on the Giants. And then, later a report came out where they, the Giants denied that and said, "Oh, Daniel Jones is our starter." But I kind of feel like there may have been some truth to that. I mean, I just don't know if something like that comes out of thin air. And I feel like the Giants might just be trying to like save face now because, they don't want a quarterback controversy or whatever. So I think Daniel Jones will most likely start the season as the starter, but I think there's a chance he's on a pretty short leash, and I think it's safe to say Drew Lock could be making some starts this season and might be sooner than you expect.
Yeah, exactly. For what the quarterbacks are on the board, I think Drew Lock's our best chance of getting a starter.
Yeah.
Whether we want to use him or not, it's someone will want him if he's starting games.
Yeah.
He beat the Seahawks last year, I think, in one of his only starts. Or sorry, not Seahawks,
or the Eagles.
the
Yeah.
Eagles.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that big like comeback like 2-minute drill, right? So he showed a little flash of doing something.
Oh yeah, I mean he played well in a couple of regular season games that he was called in on, and he also had a really good preseason. I remember last year, so he's kind of had some like time as a backup in Seattle, and maybe he's learned a thing or two. So I think is there a chance that he could be like the next Geno Smith? You know what I mean? Kind of like
exactly
that high drafted
like,
quarterback that was forgotten about and kind of became this backup journeyman, and then reemerges at some point. So you never know. But yeah, we were just looking for kind of like some quarterbacks that might have a chance to start some games or maybe win the job at some point, and just kind of fill out that QB depth.
Yeah, it's funny. You read my mind when you said, maybe you learned a thing or two, and then, connected with Seattle. It's just, you might be much younger than Gino was, but hopefully, you can just see something like that. We come back around 21st. This is a pick where it's kind of just in the garbage right now. He's just like nothing really too exciting, but A.J. Dillon was connected to the Cowboys, and, I think that was a pretty decent shot to take because he beat the Cowboys RB1 on paper. And given that offense, there'd be a lot of chances to get in the end zone. Didn't work out. He's in back of the Packers, and then we basically come back. I'll just list out some names here of our next selections, and we can kind of pick and choose anyone here. But
Yeah,
Kendrick
just one
Bourne,
comment about AJ Dillon.
yeah,
We sort of took the gamble on who was it, Sam Darnold, that the report was saying he was going to the Vikings, so we
yeah,
just sort of gambled on it, and it worked out. That's ended up, that ended up happening, and then we
yeah,
basically used the same logic on AJ Dillon. The report linked him to the
yeah.
Cowboys, so we kind of just took the gamble on him, even though we're not big fans of AJ Dillon as a talent.
No,
And
no,
it
yeah,
didn't work out. And he doesn't sign with the Cowboys. He goes back to the Packers, which doesn't really excite us, but who knows? Maybe we get a Josh Jacobs injury and he, gets a chance and we can flip him and get rid of him. But, you win some, you lose
yeah,
some. But we rolled the dice. One time it worked out, one time it didn't.
yeah. Exactly. I'm happy with how it worked out. And you know what? He's still a handcuff
Yeah.
in Green Bay. Whatever.
Yeah.
He's got his value. But
Yeah. Any running back on a 53, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So we come back around. Now this is where it gets a little funny here. We were pounding the board for Charlie Jones here.
Oh,
I
yeah.
actually own him in like four. I own him in like 4 leagues.
Oh, do
I
you?
thought I had him in like one or two.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I have him in a bunch of leagues, just
Mhm.
stored on taxi slots. I actually got him in like a crazy Josh Allen trade in one league. Like,
Okay.
I got him as a throw-in.
Nice.
I'm not like too hot on him, but
Yeah.
I see I don't know anything really about him,
Yeah.
but I know of like whatever. Yeah, he's a really fast receiver, and I don't know what he plays, slot, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah,
idea,
he seems like more of a slot receiver. He's a Big Ten guy. I believe he went to Purdue, and he was kind of a late breakout. I think it was his like senior season that he had like a ridiculous number of catches. But yeah, he's surprisingly fast. He ran a really fast 40. And there's a decent chance he's the slot wide receiver for Joe Burrow and that Bengals offense. So that's definitely a nice position to be in. I mean, Tyler Boyd definitely, had some nice seasons there in his prime. And I don't know, just with Charlie Jones, I just kind of get some, I don't know, I kind of think of those like Rams receivers like, Cooper Kupp and Puka Nakua. So obviously that would be a dream scenario. So I'm not expecting necessarily anything like that, but I certainly think he could be a Tyler Boyd type. So, I thought there was good value there, but yeah, we ended up getting sniped on him.
Yeah, we got crazy sniped. I think I was trying to reassure. I'm like, we're gonna get Charlie Jones because I was very confident. I don't know how to pronounce his name, like Yosava. Or
oh yeah.
I was really confident he would come off the board first because he caught like 2 touchdowns.
In the last week of the season. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I was very confident he was gonna come off first, no
which he
matter
did.
what ADP said, and then I'm like, oh, we're fine. There's like 2 more picks still, and then he comes off. It was pretty funny. But we got our guy Kendrick Bourne, who's only like 3 years older, ACL, but he actually has production.
Yeah.
So I'm not too mad about that. We got one of our guys. Noah Brown gets sniped kind of like later, round or 2 later.
Yeah, but we were definitely targeting after Charlie Jones. We were kind of targeting kind of these like older, crusty receivers that like are kind of underrated and kind of sneaky productive, like Kendrick Bourne and Noah Brown, and then also Demarcus Robinson, who we were able to get later. So we at least got like 2 of those 3 guys, and just some like unheralded older guys that can produce for us and kind of fill in some gaps if we need them.
Yeah, exactly. And then coming back around, we get our on paper, we get our 4th starting quarterback, Jared Stidham here for the Broncos.
Right. Yeah. And again, we just thought it was good value that, you're getting a potential starting quarterback and like, what we like the 20s of the rounds now or something like that.
Yeah, we're in 23. I think everyone, he's going beside Tyler Scott, who by the way, I did try to trade Tyler Scott in a 4th round pick for Sam Darnold in Blood, Sweat, and Beers.
Nice.
My response back was, I don't even know who that is. So
oh my God.
Taking Jared Stidham here besides. I said there's no bad trade for Sam Darnold, but getting Jared Stidham, you never know. And I think everyone that would, that's playing Dynasty. If they think Jared Stidham, they just think of that week on the Raiders where he just lit up the Niners.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen one game out of him that he could do something.
Yeah.
It's enough for me in round 23.
Yeah, because the Broncos might not be in a position to get a quarterback. I forget exactly where they draft, but I don't believe it's particularly high. So they might have to roll with a Jared Stidham for the year. It'll be interesting to see. I could see the Broncos maybe getting in one of those quarterbacks in like round 2 of the NFL draft, but then maybe it's sort of a quarterback
Yeah.
competition. So it's at least a guy that has a chance to start some games.
Yeah, think of it if they brought in maybe a guy like Rattler too. Maybe we could like get him late
Yeah.
in the third or something, and then we kind of own that quarterback
Yeah.
room, and then just see how it plays out, right? Kind of.
Yeah.
So it's it's not too bad of an idea grabbing just a guy that's on paper a starter.
Oh yeah,
late.
I mean,
these are
sometimes the whole is greater than the or wait, I don't know. I'm gonna butcher this expression, but basically sometimes like having like, both like a Stidham and maybe like a rookie quarterback that the Broncos draft in the second round or whatever. Maybe you're not like individually that excited about owning either one of them. But if you get both of them and you basically have like Broncos quarterback locked up, it's sort of like, it's equal to more than they would be individually.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
And, we then we get our first, guy on probably, I don't know what's going on with Keyshawn Booty. He comes out the board. We don't pick him. He comes out the board one pick before Greg Dortch. Seeing Keyshawn Boutte come off the board, I think it was a good sign that we got to move up there for Greg Dortch, who again on paper is the wide receiver. I don't know. I think he's going to be more productive if given the same opportunity than a Michael Wilson. He's been awesome. Again, just a guy I think we liked.
Oh yeah, for sure. And
snag him.
Yeah, he's a guy that's always has produced, like when he's, injuries happen and he's had a step in there, and he's had some games where he's gotten some crazy number of catches and targets and stuff like that. So he's always been a guy I liked, and we knew that Marquise Brown was probably going to be out of Arizona, and exactly. I even kind of felt like there was a small chance that Rondale Moore, who had 1 year left on his contract, might get moved because it just seemed like it wasn't working out, and it seemed like Dortch was more productive. So it just seemed like there was a chance that Dortch could have that, slot wide receiver spot on the Cardinals to himself going into this season, and it ended up happening exactly that way. Rondale Moore gets traded to the Falcons. I think that happened after we picked him. So
I think it happened just before. I think.
Oh, was it just before? Okay.
Yeah, we already had his name kind of in the flow there.
Yeah, we already liked him.
Yeah, exactly. We had him on the board, and then we saw he got traded.
So and then I think we actually traded up so that we could grab Dortch. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, we moved back like 2 rounds, like round 20. I don't know what it was.
Yeah,
we moved up a couple spots.
But it was another example of like how free agency happening in real time was like affecting the startup draft. So it was really interesting how like the timing of those things lined up. And we definitely used it to our full advantage. And when news broke, we weren't afraid to trade up and, get a guy who just increased in value before everyone else realized it.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think I feel so like good about getting, Greg Dortch and a Stidham here, and like these guys are just, we have guys in jail, guys that are been betting on themselves, they're going to be playing in the longest yard. Like, we're out here getting guys that are going to be actually on the field. So I felt pretty good about that. And
because the sleeper ADP was all jacked up, and so there were some weird names that were like above an ADP over like guys like Dortch that you would actually want. So sometimes you really had to scroll down there. So I was glad we got Dortch though. I thought that was a nice little find there. Stash some of those kind of guys, and so I thought that's about as good as you're going to get in the 29th, 30th round of a startup draft. Yeah, exactly. We at least get some kind of chance there of increasing in some value or getting a valuable player there. And then basically that kind of summarizes. We went really in depth on basically all our picks there because I feel like every round we were I was most excited I was to make a pick. Like we always had someone on the board. I felt like we kind of maximized our value there drafting, and then came away with the roster we were pretty happy with. Like, and I think that's the biggest thing is, again, people look in this roster, they're wondering what the hell happened. We are very excited about this draft. Like, I think we really killed this draft, and especially coming away with 2 firsts and 2 seconds, all from different managers in the next round there. Or sorry, in the next draft. I think that's a big piece. I just highlighted all of our 25 picks here, and so That's a big thing. I mean, I think with our roster, you really need to look at the draft picks first and
Yeah,
then look at the actual players after that because,
yeah,
I think you'll have a different impression. I really think it's the draft picks that we focus on. So you see the 25 picks
yeah,
here. We got 3 first rounders, we got 3 second rounders, and then the 24 picks, we got
yeah. We got
2 late first.
basically three.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just,
sitting on the 201. Like,
yeah, because you got the 201 here,
and
so
three,
you
four.
practically have like three late firsts and like 2
Yeah,
early seconds in the 203 and 204, and then a couple of early thirds. So
yeah,
we got it.
exactly. And those thirds, like, I think there's going to be a chance we get a guy we like coming in there, especially maybe with the quarterbacks. I mentioned Spencer Rattler.
Yeah,
He seems like a guy that can kind of is going to be shocking people, just going a little bit higher than people really think in the draft there.
okay,
But the little player take there, by,
yeah, yeah,
but yeah, no. So I think it was a really, it was an exciting draft, and the biggest thing is, like, if you can get someone's first in a startup draft, like we were talking about this when you joined the Grease Bowl. You're like wondering what the hell happened to your first,
yeah,
and someone traded it. Or we don't know the exact trade, but it was like for like Miles Sanders.
yeah,
Like the startup
basically,
pick that was Miles Sanders in the early sixth, and it's like, that's kind of like my big thing is just never trade my first ever, because if you trade it, the one time I did it, it ended up being the 104. That was my worst league, my worst startup, and it
mm,
was a really good team on paper in preseason, like unreal. Everyone was hurt. I had Cooper Cup, Christian Watson, etc.
yeah.
Everyone was hurt. No one was playing, and it was just like a dumpster fire. And then I just ended up having to load up on 425 first,
Yeah.
like, well, kind of building a team out. So,
Yeah, I mean, I
um,
think the lesson
yeah,
is, be very careful about trading away your own first because you lose a lot of flexibility because it's a nice safety net where if the season doesn't go as you planned, then you can just start tanking it, burning it down, and you can try to get that 101 next year or whatever, and that
yeah,
goes a long way. But when you trade it away, you lose that flexibility, and then you don't really have much incentive to tank anymore. But yet the season's going bad, so you're not going to compete,
yeah,
so you're not really accomplishing anything. So, but yeah, be careful about it. But if you do trade away your own first, probably don't trade it for a running back because
yeah,
that's your cautionary tale. This was a year ago. Miles Sanders was coming off a good year with the Eagles. His final year in Philadelphia, he
yeah.
goes over to the
It's his contract.
Panthers, and in the startup draft, this former manager that had my team before I took it over here, took over the orphan. He trades a pick in the startup. He trades his 24 first for basically Miles Sanders, and
Yeah,
basically his Miles Sanders value went from being a first round rookie pick to what, like a fourth rounder at this
nothing.
point, like
Yeah,
basically to
exactly.
nothing. And like, I mean,
Yeah,
how long did that take? Like a matter of months, like less than a year. It just went.
yeah,
His value
exactly.
went down to zero. So be careful about trading
Yeah,
your first, especially for a running back, and especially for a running back who's not like
yeah.
in his young, rookie contract stud.
Yeah, if you're getting like a Brees Hall in the
Yeah,
trade, but I'll say I traded in that league. I traded for whatever, like a startup pick and something for it was Trevor Lawrence who I traded out for,
yeah,
and even being that he's like not that disappointing, but like 'cause I got him like at a good value last year, like 110 or something, but
hmm
it just didn't work out, and I didn't have anything really to answer with it with
yeah,
as far as draft capital. So I'd almost go as far to say as there's almost no scenario where I'm trading my first in a startup ever
yeah.
again, unless it's like just the deal of the century
Right,
that I need to accept.
right,
It's just
exactly.
not smart. You don't know what's going to happen, and then yeah, you have no flexibility. You have to commit to winning next year, basically, because
Yeah,
otherwise, why would you send your first off, right? So,
yeah,
and then just another thing, I don't know about you, getting seconds in the startup draft just feels so easy. These guys were pretty stingy with their seconds.
hmm
I had a guy offer a second for my third, second round startup pick, and in like a fourth or something. Like, I don't know what that guy was thinking, but
yeah,
like I think he just messing with us.
yeah,
But no, I was happy we got 2 extra seconds there, because like that's it's a year out. It's a second. Like,
hmm
I was trying to get any chance possible to get those seconds because, like, what if it's 201, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think those are almost sneakier than the first just because of how easily you could potentially acquire them.
Oh yeah, definitely a lot easier to get those seconds. So yeah,
Yeah.
should we talk about like kind of like what our roster looks like, kind of like stepping back, looking at the big picture, and kind of like where we want to like take it from here with the startup draft over?
Yeah, yeah. I noticed we only got like 3 minutes on that thing there,
Okay,
so we can try to keep it short. But
sure.
yeah, like exactly. Like we're looking good. Like we got anchors at running back, quarterback. Being that we don't really know what's going to happen with our rookie picks, if we're going to trade them, pick them. We have more than enough ammunition to fill out the receiver room, so I'm not too really worried about that. Like running back, I think on the little keep trade cut thing, it said we're RB1 actually.
Hmm.
Like yeah, we're actually sneakily loaded at running back behind
Right.
Brees Hall. Again, we have quarterbacks, tight end is a little bit of a concern, but we again like we it's not really something I'm worried about filling out right now.
Yeah.
So obviously receivers the biggest thing, and again, we have more than enough opportunity to bring in up to like 7 receivers if we need. What about you here?
Yeah, I mean that was kind of our thinking, is that we were okay being thin at receiver coming out of the startup draft because we knew we had 7 rookie picks coming up, and we have a rookie class loaded with wide receiver, one of the deepest classes at wide receiver. So if we end up
Yeah,
making a lot of those picks, we're probably going to end up with a lot of receivers with some exciting upside, and hopefully hit on a few of those and fill out the receiver room that way. Or we might trade some of those picks, maybe get some veteran receivers, and then get some later picks in the draft that we could also take, that we could also use on wide receivers. So I think there are going to be
yeah,
plenty of chances here. We could also trade from our
yeah,
depth at running back for a receiver.
yeah,
Because I
yeah,
mean,
exactly.
with all the running backs we took, there's got to be some teams in this league that are a little thin at running back. So I don't think it would be too hard to
No,
kind of leverage our depth there to get help get our depth at wide receiver.
exactly. I think the big kind of conversation we got to have here is Connor seems like a sell in season unless
Mm-hmm.
unless he survives the draft. Maybe someone gets really excited about him,
Mm-hmm.
and we can cash out. But I do think Zach Moss is probably a good sell. Maybe right now, I don't think they're going to come away with anyone in the draft. Maybe people think that. Maybe we
Mm-hmm.
could sell him after the draft, and people will try to fill out their lineups more.
Yeah.
But I think I don't really like Zach Moss as a player. He proved me wrong last season. But he just feels like a guy that we can get a second for, just
Mm-hmm.
random in 2025 right now.
Yeah.
One another, and I don't think that's going to change no matter really how good he does. He's not
Mm-hmm.
going to be Kyron Williams.
Yeah.
Um, and just seeing how these guys were valuing running backs, like Rashad White was going like not high, and he's supposed to be worth the 108 or whatever, right? Like, so if we could just get our second for Moss,
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty good way to go about it. And again, just brings us a lot more flexibility for next year.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
I think at this point we don't know for sure whether we're going to turn this team into a contender, or we're going to
yeah,
make it more into a rebuild and just like sell as many players as we can. But I think it's just like we don't have to have it all planned out now. I mean, I think we have
no,
a team that's really flexible, and so I think the next thing is just like head into the rookie draft and see what opportunities present themselves there. Look for
yeah,
opportunities to trade out of picks. Can we trade
yeah,
out of the 110, like we were talking about earlier, and can we get like a veteran wide receiver that's productive plus
yeah,
like a later pick in the rookie draft, where we, and then, with that later pick, then do we could either take a rookie receiver there or trade out of that again, get another
yeah,
veteran, and you just kind of utilize like sort of like a cascading effect and just turning like one asset into 2 into 3 whatever,
yeah,
and just basically build out as much value. So I think just we're just going to go into the rookie draft, be open to opportunities, see what comes our way, and just kind of like take whatever value presents itself and just sort of let that dictate what direction we go with the team.
yeah, exactly. I can't wait for this NFL draft, especially like I got a lot of draft picks in my leagues. I actually have traded a ton off for some major assets,
Right.
but also this is my big league here where I'm sitting on a lot of assets in
Yep.
that like late to mid, like late first,
Yep.
early second, where I don't have many picks in my other leagues there anymore. I've traded them all off.
Yep.
So hopefully we get some good landing spots, and hopefully it's just like dangling candy there in front of like a baby,
Yep.
um, or whatever, and just like from the little kid there, and all these guys are just trying to flock to our like Bills and Chiefs wide receivers that were drafted and
Right.
stuff.
Right. For sure.
And
Yeah.
we're like, he's the next, whatever, Rasheed Rice and
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever
For
the
sure.
next things. So I think in there, I think I don't think there's any chance we trade out of all these picks. I think we'll hopefully get out of a few of them,
Yeah.
and maybe it's going to be like 50-50. It's so hard to know.
Right, right,
But
yeah. Like again, we'll just have to kind of see what
exactly.
opportunities present themselves. So it's impossible to predict. You never know, like with a league, like how active the trade market's going to be during the rookie draft. Like in some leagues, it's like crazy active, and you got trades going
Yeah.
everywhere, and you have managers offering up their veterans to trade up,
Yeah.
and you can get some great deals. So I'm excited to see if those opportunities are there. And if they're not, then we'll just stick and pick,
Yeah.
and we'll take the value that falls to us in terms of the best player on the board. I feel like we can just kind of take the best value in that
Yeah.
scenario, and not we don't have to like reach and say like, oh, we need a receiver, we need this or that. But odds are
Yeah.
the value would probably be at receiver, just because it's such a
Exactly.
deep position in this draft. So I think that works out really conveniently for us if we do have to stick and pick.
Yeah, no, exactly. And like another thing that's a little interesting is how the rookie draft's going to be after startup versus the ones that are already been going for 3 years. But with we haven't shown any of the other teams. But basically, what I noticed is there's no team that is far and away the best team. No one went really all in. People did trade their first, but
Mhm.
they were also picking first this year. So it
Mhm.
was like they were trying to keep their team flexible as well. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity to trade
Yeah.
these first off because no everyone on their team is would value these players or picks, right, and it would be kind of like a good anchor to their team.
Yeah.
Um,
I think
so
what's also nice is that like with a startup draft, usually there's going to be like more parity, in a dynasty league
yeah,
coming right
yeah,
off of the startup, because after a dynasty league's been around for a few years, you start getting those juggernauts, developed in the league, and then it can be really tough to overcome that. So I think what's kind of nice about the startup is you usually get that parity, and it gives you an opportunity to jump in and contend right off the bat potentially,
yeah,
even if you started off with more of like a productive struggle build like we did. But it's not going to be that hard to transition this into a contender, just kind of depending on how the rookie draft goes and things like that. But I don't think we're that far away. So I think we're
no,
in a
yeah.
good spot with the flexibility we have, and I think we can pretty much take this any direction we want.
Yeah, absolutely. This is gonna be like a fun team to follow. We're gonna be the biggest like Drew Lock and Jared Stidham
Oh yeah,
fans of this offseason.
yeah, for
And
sure. So yeah. So we just have to decide whether we're going to use that production or trade it away, and
yeah,
keep building that war chest of future draft picks. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
yeah, exactly. It's gonna be a lot of waiting around and just waiting for this draft to start because again, that's basically all our answers
Yeah.
will come around the NFL and the rookie draft. But this was I'm glad I joined in here as co-manager. It's just I don't know how many people do that, but it's like it's interesting to like have like an actual co. Like we weren't like like I wasn't dominating the draft. Like I'm trying to make it 50-50 because
Oh
it's
yeah.
like you just talked me out of Justin Fields. Like I truly believe when we were doing this startup draft, like
Mhm.
okay, maybe fifth round, like whatever. Like, I think he went like mid fourth. I'm like, yeah, that's like reasonable.
Mhm.
Because Atlanta Falcons was the rumor and all that stuff,
Right.
right? And you're like, okay, well, that's not a bad situation, whatever. And now he's worth like nothing. So
Yeah.
actually, we just traded in the Grease Bowl for like I think it was
Two
like a way
seconds.
overpay. It was like
Yeah.
203 and 209. It's like basically like a first, and he's a backup quarterback right now.
Yeah. I thought that was a big overpay, and I was shocked to see even that
No,
Fields
nah.
even get traded for that at this point. So I don't think that's typical. I mean, I don't imagine he's getting moved in a lot of leagues because probably most Fields owners don't want to admit that his value has dropped, that far. I think a lot of them are in
Yeah.
denial. We definitely know one of
Yeah.
those in one of our leagues.
Yeah, I might know one of
We
them.
won't mention any names, but
Yeah.
his value has really cratered, and I kind of suspected that might be coming like a week ago when the reports started coming out that the trade market for him wasn't all that robust.
Yeah,
From
yeah.
the Bears'
There was a lot
perspective.
of there was a lot of places to go, and then I think you and I had talked about it, that was they had just it was maybe the first day of free agency. They had all started to kind of crumble and come off, and it's going okay, maybe there's some more to this, like right, like maybe
Yeah.
teams don't view him as a starter, and so that was good. And another thing, this won't mention any names. There was a trade offer I sent that you would probably be pretty disappointed in. This was 17 days ago. I checked today
Okay.
because I just remembered it, and like this is just how quick the dynasty market changes. This is like I always try to keep in mind how quickly guys fall off, whatever, like just jump. And I sent an offer out for Justin Fields and Drake London,
Mm-hmm.
who appeared to be getting stacked, and that wasn't like I didn't really
Right.
like that was a bonus if it happened,
Sure.
but it like I didn't really care what team they were on.
Yeah.
But I just like both of them
Yeah.
for my team build, and I sent the 102 like in return, and I think Luke Musgrave was on that other side.
Oh wow.
As well.
Yeah.
So I was like quarterback of the future. It's hard to value Fields, but I'm like, okay, if he's on the team, he's gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
Starting, and then I'm like, okay, Drake London, your new quarterback, whoever it is, gonna be raising in value. So I'm like, adding those two together, a quarterback, receiver, 102, but Marvin, I'm like, two starters, Marvin,
Yeah.
maybe Drake London's better. I don't know, let me just try to fill this out, and then it got declined, and I'm like, and then
Yeah.
it's like, why you offer me this? This is a terrible trade kind of thing, right?
Oh wow.
And then it's like, right, I got a lull back, and then all of a sudden now, if I were to send that, like, it's just a no-brain except.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Right?
It's crazy how quickly things change. I mean, we talked about how quickly Miles Sanders' value went down to nothing. I mean, that's nothing compared to how fast Fields' value just absolutely cratered. I mean, it was like a matter of days. And like I said, when I first saw those reports coming out, I was just kind of getting Trey Lance vibes. I got burned on Trey Lance. The first Dynasty league I ever joined a few years ago, I took over an orphan team. Actually, I think it was my second Dynasty league. But it was the first orphan team I took over, and it was the first rookie draft for this team. And my first pick was Trey Lance, and I got burned on that. And this Fields thing was just reminding me of that. So as soon as I heard those reports coming out that the Bears were having trouble trading him, I'm like, I had Justin Fields in one league, 16 teams, one quarterback league. Traded him straight up for Terry McLaurin, and I was thrilled to get that. I got roasted in the league chat saying what a bad trade I made, and I said, well, let's just see how that ages, and it aged pretty well.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like that's a great, and with the Trey Lance, like the funny thing is you see that happen, like. And it worked out. It worked out this time that he actually is going the Trey Lance route. But I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, you know what though, like, yes, like that is a possible outcome. Yeah. But we just feel like Fields, like it was just the buzz before was that and then obviously when we had that conversation, I'm like, you know what, I think Dan's right here.
Yeah.
There's no reason to trade for him right now. Like it's just safer to see what happens, and then you can consider and then the whole contract situation is a whole other topic. Fields has just been a huge, little decline there in the markets. And I'm very glad I had that trade decline though.
Oh,
I was just thinking about that. I mean, earlier today.
Sometimes the best trade is the one you didn't make, or the one that got declined. So
exactly.
Sometimes that's how it works out. So you're glad you're thankful that guy declined it, and it works out for the best sometimes.
Absolutely, yeah. We ended up getting Drake London there, anyways. So I was
nice.
Pretty happy about that. Yep. But and so, anyways, well, I guess we can just wrap it up here. We we went into great detail about all our picks through the draft and kind of strategy going. But if anyone has even made it this far, like this is, I think, it's been a pretty interesting conversation, though, at least between the two of us.
Oh yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, like for us to go through the draft and and again, just to see how both, like, we're pretty on the same page, I think, about a lot of things, but
Mm-hmm.
there's obviously going to be like spots where it's like, okay, I want this thing, and
Yeah.
you're like, that, and we got to try to figure out how to kind of meet in the middle of what's going to be the best thing for the team.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah, and I think we did that. I let you have your AJ Dillon, and well, I know that was a bad one, so not to highlight that one, but there was some picks where it was like, okay, we'll go with your guy, and there were other picks where we went with my guy, and then but I'd say probably for the majority of them, it seemed like we were pretty well on the same page, so it wasn't like too hard. And I think it was a great co-ownership of the startup draft, and I definitely think this will be a fun team to manage. And I kind of feel like we're in limbo now between like now and the rookie draft, because like I kind of feel like our course will be decided then to a degree.
Yeah.
So it's like do we send out any trade offers now? Like probably not. I don't know. I mean, maybe if like a good idea comes to mind, but I think probably more so we'll just be kind of like sitting back, and if we get a trade offer, we'll look at it, and if there's value there that pushes us in one direction or the other, I certainly think we would consider making a trade. So again, just kind of letting things come to us at this point.
Yeah, exactly. I think most of these guys are just kind of hold on to them, wait to the season or the draft. But, but yeah, the one guy that just kind of jumps out to me, and again, I'm also, this guy just is a guy that like we do not have to trade right now, whatever, you wait till the season. But Zach Moss is like the only guy I can think of that people would be wanting. He'd be the kind of the heated guy. That's all I got for that. I don't think anyone's going to give you anything for Gus Edwards. And I think we'd rather just see kind of how that plays out with the draft. And the other thing, we can own with like the quarterbacks and the running backs. We have so much room to just like lock up a running back or quarterback room that is also very interesting.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like if the Vikings or Broncos or teams like that end up drafting like a rookie quarterback, like in the second round, third round, like whatever, that might be a guy that we target and just kind of lock up that quarterback room. And so I think that's just like, one example of like the ways that you can kind of patch together your, QB2 in a dynasty league. It's almost kind of like there's like the hero running back strategy. It's kind of like a hero quarterback strategy. Get your stud in Jalen Hurts, and then just grab a bunch of like, late gross guys that are, QB2s on teams and maybe have a chance to start, and and basically just kind of play that like, kind of like the zero running back strategy. Just get a lot of those backups and end up like cobbling together, a starting quarterback for that super flex spot. So and that was certainly the case last season. There were so many quarterback injuries. And there were a lot of like playoff rosters that were starting like Joe Flacco and guys like that. I mean, I was in the, a few championships where I was like starting some gross names at my super flex spot. So, every year might not be that extreme, but I certainly think it's a spot where you can get some cheap production kind of in a sneaky way.
Exactly. Yeah. That was definitely an outlier there for injuries, but remembering how that season played out, it makes you go, man, like, I do want these, these Dobbs, these Darnolds, these Locks and stuff. Like, there is value behind these guys. If they're out there playing, like, you're probably going to be starting them in some way, somehow, just with all those backups. So
and you never know
with Hurts.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, you never know when you're going to find like that next Geno Smith or Baker Mayfield. Like there's always going to be that, once in a while, that like surprise quarterback that you thought was a bust and kind of, journeys around to different teams. And then all of a sudden emerges as like a starter and he's the guy for a few years and is pretty good. So you just never know.
Yeah, exactly. Like I wasn't really there for the Goff, but like assuming Goff really tanked when he went to the Lions and was losing all his games,
Mm.
and if you had him on your roster, right now you're laughing because you got like just a really solid QB2 or potentially even QB1 for your team.
Oh yeah, I mean Jared
And
Goff is
have
like the perfect example of that. I mean, when he was traded to the Lions, he was traded as like a throw-in piece. It was basically like,
yeah,
for Stafford, we'll give you 2 firsts, and oh yeah, we'll throw in Jared Goff,
yeah, we don't want him.
and he was just looked at as like a bridge quarterback, just kind of
Yeah,
fill in for a year, and then the Lions will draft a rookie quarterback in the first round, and but then Goff played better than everyone expected, and
yeah.
I mean. Goff is a pretty valuable guy in a super flex league now. I mean, you can easily get a first round rookie pick for him. So,
Oh yeah, easily. Yeah,
yeah. So you just never know. I mean, Sam Darnold and Drew Lock and Jared Stidham might not sound that exciting, but you just never know when you might get lucky and find the next like Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith.
yeah, yeah. No, exactly. And again, going to that QB hero QB, it's it's not unlikely that Hurts is going to be outscoring two people's quarterbacks combined.
You never
for the
know.
season to
As
come,
long as they still got that
right?
tush push legal,
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I think we got to get some insider information there.
yeah.
See what the league's thinking. It sounds like it's going to be back, but we'll have to get some rules analyst connection there to see if they're ever thinking about banning that, and we'll sell them
Yeah,
off the team immediately.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think even before he was doing that, I think he was lighting it up. So
Yeah. He's a fun quarterback to own. I mean, he just like produces just like every single week, and so he's a great guy to anchor that quarterback spot. So I'm excited to have him.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad to get my first share in Dynasty. I had 2 years ago. I owned him 100% in all my redraft leagues, and it
Oh
was
wow,
awesome.
nice.
And then he whatever, separated his shoulder, and then we were starting Gardner Minshew
Oh,
in the
that's right.
playoffs and all those leagues, and
Yeah.
we won one. We did win one.
Oh,
But,
nice.
yeah, it was a little unfortunate, but he's probably the most exciting player potentially in all of fantasy to own and watch the games and to,
Oh yeah.
see
Yeah,
how it plays
he's a
out.
fun player to have, and it seems like he's kind of being a little undervalued right now. Like, hence why we were able to
Yeah.
grab him at the sixth pick in the startup draft. So I think that's great value. I really don't understand why his value has gone down at all. So
No.
I'm happy to scoop him up there.
Yeah, exactly, and it doesn't make sense. This kind of happens every year, and whatever. Like we'll take our hurts, and as soon as he plays one game and drops 30 points, he'll instantly shoot back up in that top three for people, and
Oh yeah.
maybe there's a overpay situation. To
Oh
come,
yeah,
but
for sure. Absolutely.
so yeah. So anyways, yeah, we'll wrap it up here. We've been rambling on, but
Oh yeah,
it's good.
but yeah, it's been good though. So yeah, I think that about sums it up.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
Cool. Yeah.
Maybe it's
So if anyone actually watched this and made it to the end of the video, should we have them like type something like specific in the comments to know that they watched the whole thing?
Yeah, I think we got to get. I don't know. I think we got to get maybe one of these old players here from the.
Yeah. Okay. So like who's like our favorite like random like player that we had to have in this draft here?
Oh man, there's too many of them. Honestly, there was. That's good because I could name about 10 of them. I think it's got to be between Kendrick Bourne.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think it's got to be Kendrick Bourne. Honestly.
All right. So if you made it this far in the video, comment Kendrick Bourne in the comments to let us know that you watched the whole video.
Yeah, I'll be shocked if there is a one person given our current subscribership here, but
yeah.
No, I mean I hope someone or some people enjoyed and ran across this video, whether they knew us or not.
Absolutely.
We'll have to try to throw this into some like Dynasty chat things and see. Hopefully probably not this league because we don't want this league knowing our.
Oh right, yeah, exactly. Yeah, we can't let our secrets get out, but yeah,
exactly.
We should definitely try to get the word out, try to get some eyeballs on this, and yeah, it would be great if we get a few people watching this.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's interesting to kind of get like a name to a face there or whatever, like a face to the name there, like people see it and like like I have no idea what any of these guys in these leagues are
right.
Or whatever, and even like RB there. Sorry, lighting's going on here, but
yeah,
RB who we had and made caught the podcast episode, and
right.
kind of like seeing him, like he had his face in the profile picture, but
Yep.
I'm never really looking at that. And then like it's just so interesting to like have like he's just nothing like I expected like
Oh,
when
right.
coming there.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
for sure. Yeah,
like
but yeah,
it's very interesting to
yeah, yeah, it's definitely been fun. Seeing you in person or at least like over Zoom or whatever. Yeah, I mean, it's the first time I really have like gotten to like know like some random
yeah, yeah.
league member in one of my dynasty leagues. So it's definitely been a lot of fun, and yeah, I hope we do more of these episodes.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it's getting pretty late here, so let's
Sweet.
let's
All right,
we'll
we'll
be
call it
going
a
all
night.
night.
Yeah, I don't know how you want
Yeah.
to end it, but
No,
yeah,
yeah,
that I guess that'll be all until the next episode.
yeah, we'll just pull the plug. So yeah, thank you for joining me, and
Yeah,
as always here with our two recordings, it was a lot of fun. So
yeah, my
thank
pleasure.
you so
Yeah,
much.
I'll have me back anytime.
Awesome, thank you, Dan.